with Renee.
Yo. We wait all week and all day for more Saturdays with Renee.
Good Saturday morning to everyone. Welcome to episode 61 of Saturdays with Renee, right here on Black Liberation Media. I'm Jared Ball, and of course, Renee Johnston is with us.
Morning. And we trying to figure out where Geechee at after he planned a whole like this your boy.
Planned the whole thing, got the guests, got the book, did all of that, and is late. But greetings to everybody in the chat. Welcome to everyone who's live. To those who will see and hear this later, peace to you as well. Please do like, share, subscribe. Put this in your socials. Invite others to join you. Tag Black Liberation Media when you do. Support blackliberationmedia.org. And welcome. Yeah, looking forward to the discussion, whether it's me and you or whether Geechee shows up. Because I did get to look a little bit at the book, and I admit I index searched for Andy Young to see just how complicit he is in all of this. And
that's funny because the first thing I looked for was Cop City.
Oh, that's deep. Is it in there?
No. No. I got questions. Questions.
But yeah, a lot happening in the world, and here you go, Mr. Late himself.
I'm on the way.
Let me find out.
Tell Squirrel had to come pick me up. Y'all know about the Baltimore commercial. Never mind. Yo.
Like he went to get his hair did.
No, I was at this community meeting, and I can't wait for Dan to come on because Antonio Lewis, who's representative here, just started talking some weird stuff about the Beltline residents and legacy and taxes and all that stuff. So I can't wait till Dan get here. But anyway, yeah,
that was some interesting information on that Beltline. Actually, this book is. I haven't read. I got through the first like 3 chapters, and then I started to run out of time, so I didn't get to finish it. But it's an interesting book. It's interesting.
Speaking of which, I need to cue up that picture of Andy Young, Jared's favorite friend, about his quote that I want to use too, because I don't know if you got to read some of it, Jared, but
I did. Yeah. I got to read at least some of it. I was index searching for Young's name.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I read, but not much. Because I admit I had planned to be up early this morning and read, but I'm gonna blame Dr. Winkler. Dennis Asar Winkler sent me, and it's not Renee level deep dive. But I won't front. I got sidetracked all morning by it's like it's weird. It's like I got weirdly fascinated with this horrible I don't know, logic defying argument by a woman. It's a buying power thing. It starts with buying power, but she's turned it into this. She connects it with the Bible.
Oh shit!
So she's combining preacher with, and she's literally saying, "I'm doing a video. I'm gonna do it later today. It's gonna be called Mark It Like the Messiah," because that's what she says you have to do.
Send me this. I wish Dennis would have sent me this too, because I can't wait for this actually, because according to the Bible, especially in Acts, if anybody's gonna be circulating money, it's everybody putting their money in one pot and then circulate it equally to everybody. And that's what the Bible is telling you to do.
Nah, you're not listening to sis. She's explaining that we've misread the Bible. People like you,
I can't wait. I can't wait. I used to be a Bible thumper, so I can't wait.
You over there talking about misreading the Bible. You over there misreading the Bible. She's saying we've been convinced and tricked into reading it from the perspective of him being critical of making money. She says, but look in the Bible for how many times he says wealth. And then she says, I'm not going to do the homework for you. You got to go look it up yourself. But read the Bible again. And she's saying we've missed, with the trigger word, everything, mindset, we've missed. She calls herself a thought leader. She's got a whole doctorate in.
Wait, who's this lady, bro?
In performance.
Performance makes sense.
Which has nothing to do with her market like the Messiah, but her point is market like the Messiah, and you will come into his kingdom of reward. It's
what she said about the Messiah recommendation of paying taxes. Did she talk about taxes?
I have not seen her talk about taxes. She's that's what's baffling. I spent literally hours all this morning. I don't know what her plan is. I don't know.
Circulate the dollars to her, duh.
There's no direct. It's. I think what you have to do is actually sign up to communicate with her to become part of her paid, because everything is initially free. And
isn't that how all these things work? Like it's all initially, if it's free, they suck you in.
But there's nothing like with the Earn Your Leisure crew. They'll have a website that says, pay me X amount of dollars and you get into this. She doesn't have any of that. It's all the Lord and wealth. And I went from the Baltimore streets to Stanford to the only thing you have to is you can apply to reach her, and then you get to the next stage, which I don't know what that is.
So is this like Scientology, where like
you find out at the end that it's Xenu in them? I don't know. I don't know, but
what about the Lord's recommendation for debt forgiveness? She talking about debt forgiveness?
Man. No. Hey. Because again, you've misread the Bible. The Bible apparently tells you, and she literally breaks it down. I'm gonna pull this one part up.
I'm like, please pull it up. Please, pull it up.
Look at this is it's her God made millions plan.
She's got Jared flummoxed.
Yeah, I mean it's God made millions trademark. 5 Christ-kissed strategies for you to reach, serve, and have millions. Christ-kissed.
Oh, I used to say I was sun-kissed.
But it's just for women, Jared. Maybe that's why you don't.
I know. That's why that's why it's not for me. And it's not even just for Black women. It's for Black women who are already entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business owners.
Staggeringly successful? Like, wait, they staggered on success?
It's overwhelmingly successful.
Oh.
And that yeah. And then I mean it's
oh, here we go with this disrupting shit again. It's all like entrepreneurship is disruptive, but that don't mean it's healthy, right?
And then these are not the 5. You got to Jesus. Jesus was Jesus worked his brand.
What?
That's why you have to market like the Messiah. So she talks about how Jesus spread the word.
Did she trademark these things?
Yes.
Is that a joke?
What I mean. She put I haven't looked them up, but she's got TM over a whole bunch of her phrases. God made millions, Jesus brand. Jesus's spirit-led approach to kingdom building is the most effective marketing campaign of all time. His message has been converting for over 2,000 years. His brand, Jesus brand, has reached the world and spun more new markets, merchandise, and media than any other brand in the history of mankind. This model is one of 5 truths covered in depth in the God Made Millions Masterclass,
So,
which I watched. You can get to it for free. And she's remarkable in that, and she'll tell you over and over again, Dr. Opal Venus Reese. And it took me a while to find what the doctor was for. And she says she was once a tenured professor, but I don't know where and on what basis, because you look up research, there's one published article from 2006 that it's I don't even know what journal it's in, by the way. You can't even determine, it's not even listed in the journal. So I don't know where but she got a Stanford PhD apparently. And I did look up her dissertation. So she did submit a 300+ page dissertation to Stanford in 2006, 2002, 2000, somewhere around there. And performance studies, it's a legit field. I just don't know what it has to do with explaining to Black people how the economy works. Unless you're performing, which she's good at. I mean, I've been watching her videos, watching her master class, which is again an hour-long vague presentation of all of this. It's wild. So yeah,
you a master.
Real quick,
now?
But is there a business that makes less money off Jesus than the church does? I mean, she might have something going there. If you think about how much money churches make off Jesus, I mean, not for nothing, but I mean.
No, look, again, it's much like a lot of these other folks in this financial literacy space. They make money from selling themselves or their classes or their tutorials. They haven't made the money through the market or in business. They haven't become wealthy that way. They've become wealthy from doing this. So that's why but she and her book is her memoir, which talks about how she went from living in the streets to making millions. But the making millions comes through this kind of stuff. It wasn't like I started an actual and all of it. Anyway, there's so much. I mean, there's more, but it all done like there's like. Yeah.
From the streets.
Wait.
Yeah.
Is Leah serious?
I honestly don't know. I mean, there's a couple different things happening with her. She's got one website, which her one website, like there's nothing that leads to her business. When she says, I have this defying impossible business, it all goes back to her God's Made Million page or her personal website. And in the personal website, you see her wearing lingerie. You see her, there's none of the Jesus talk. There's my memoir talk. And then you got the Jesus presentation for the Black women entrepreneurs, and then you got her, a pimp's daughter's diary, something like that, and I'm
so confused by all.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what I'm saying. So, but she's out here with apparently this, and she's been all over the place in terms of media. I was reading all her interviews and.
Man, I ain't still get the lady name. What's her name?
Dr. Opal Venus Reese.
Opal Venus Reese.
Yeah. And she's out. She's, and she says on her website, she lives on the East Coast with her puppy.
Where puppy?
Okay, just for clarification's sake.
Okay, thank you, Leah. I mean, but it would work.
Oh, wait, wait, what? She take a picture with her dog for real and she's kissing the dog in the mouth? What's going on, man?
She said puppy love is real. Like, she's very serious. There's
no way.
So anyway, look, our guest is here. It's time for us to get serious. It's time for us to be professional.
Jesus.
In front of company. So yeah, it's
we already messed up.
Yeah, we done. We shot. Dan ain't gonna save us.
I'm like, we just apologize to Dan now before you
He ain't gonna
bring
save
him
us.
up.
All right, hold up. Let's do a quick reboot.
Saturday
With Renee. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the start of the real show, to the real start of the show. Now, he in serious face. Let's introduce our special guest this week.
So we got this controversial author. No, I'm joking. No, but
Boy.
this I just came upon this brother from doing some study in the Pittsburgh neighborhood and came up on his book Red Hot City, and it's been, oh my bad, it's been a very hearty a book for me to read, and just allow me to kind of understand how gentrification work in the Pittsburgh neighborhood. But Dan Immergluck is a professor of urban studies at Georgia State University in Atlanta. His research and policy work concerns affordable housing, community development, gentrification, and related topics at Georgia State and previously at Georgia Tech. Professor Immergluck has taught courses in housing policy and other topics of 2 decades. Dr. Immergluck is the author of 5 books and over 120 scholarly articles, book chapters, and research. Professor Immergluck has been cited at, my bad, I just got cut off, but we'll just stop there. But let's bring it further, because I forgot the copy and paste thing mess up. But anyway, peace, Dan. How you feeling?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great, man. But I have to start you with this, man. So I was just at a community meeting, and your homeboy Antonio Lewis was in there, and he was talking about how Atlanta Beltline is now going to help legacy residents keep their home. They're going to be paying taxes, property taxes. They're going to enhance their chances of getting generational wealth. And so your book, everything was wrong about your book. They're going to fix everything. And now
20 years later.
20 years later. But yeah, so if you get a chance, definitely check out Red Hot City. But can you tell us about the premise of the book? What have you maybe achieved in sharing this research? And then maybe what some of the struggles have been in getting this out, especially being a professor at Georgia State.
Thanks, Geechee. Yeah, so I've been, I had been in Atlanta teaching, doing a lot of research around Atlanta, working with different groups in the city, housing groups, neighborhood groups. And I particularly came to Atlanta in 2005. Coincidentally, that was the year that the Beltline started, that it was kind of officially initiated. And just after 15 or so years of seeing pretty rampant gentrification and displacement and what I really call exclusion, which is the inability for the city to allow lower income folks to move in, yet alone not get displaced. I decided to start kind of packaging up my work and keeping files. And I'd done a lot of policy work in the city, mostly as just an independent voice, I guess. And I just felt somebody needed to write this book. There was a really well-known book by academics written in the 80s about Atlanta and about the 20th century. And I really felt, given how fast the city has and much the city has changed, particularly since the Olympics, that 30-year period after the Olympics needed a story. And it was one that I really thought was one that not only might help Atlanta to reverse course a little bit or change, but especially be a lesson for other cities that are kind of in earlier stages of where Atlanta's at. Because I see the Atlanta model as kind of a paradigm for city-led gentrification, kind of publicly sponsored gentrification, and as a model that a lot of people around the country are saying, oh, let's be like Atlanta, let's be like the Beltline, let's do what they're doing. And in fact, Atlanta and the last three administrations, but especially the current one and the previous one, are being praised as kind of models for housing, models for urban development. And I just felt like that needed a corrective. So that's, and the other part of this is lots of frustration over the years with what the city and the state does. And this was kind of a letting go, a catharsis of just releasing 20 years of frustration into this book.
So we over here we always talk about the Andy Young's contributions, and so when I was reading your book, I kind of pulled this quote out of the book. Andy Young said, "My job is to see that whites get some of the power and blacks to get some of the money." And
I think he did better at the first part of that, maybe meaning the sum, just some. But
yeah.
I don't think he did too well on the second part of that.
Nah, not at all. But so tell us a little bit about the I guess the public-private partnerships, and I think you call it the corporate-owned Atlanta regime.
Yeah, that's a word that a guy named Clarence Stone coined in this book I referred to that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, which was really about, the mid part of the 20th century, Mayor Hartsfield in particular, building up a regime, a power structure that matched. See, basically what Hartsfield was facing in the middle and later parts of, middle parts of the 20th century is he realized that the city was becoming increasingly black, and he could not maintain his power, especially after the 52 federal lawsuit that opened up the Democratic primaries to black folks, that he saw, that his days were numbered. So one thing he did is annex Buckhead and annex the white suburbs, a lot of the white suburbs into the city. But that was only temporary because he knew that this was going to keep going. So he felt like the way that the white power structure, particularly corporate power structure, could survive is basically by co-opting in various ways the existing black power structure. Of course, at the time, that involved civil rights, but it also involved churches, small, kind of nascent black businesses, the black insurance companies, black banks, and to build it into a coalition that would still serve the interests of kind of corporations and white homeowners. And that's kind of where we're still at in the city, at least. And what that meant in the long run was black political leadership, meaning black mayors, larger percentage of city councilmen being black, but really power still in the hands of things like the Atlanta Committee for Progress, those kinds of things that really represent, Coca-Cola, Delta, but also real estate developers, increasingly real estate developers, where the real kind of power still lies. And I think, yes, there have been some gains in terms of black political leadership, but it's still, except for some initial pushback, somewhat successful by Maynard Jackson, except for that, and then he was kind of quelled in a sense in his later terms, there really hasn't been pushback or a successful black-led power structure that challenges white corporate power structure.
You, to an extent, to any extent that you didn't answer this already, you talk a little bit in your book about one of the issues, in my language, one of the problems that Andy Young presented early on was his interest in bringing in global capital. And I thought you wrote, again, I have a particular bias here, but I thought you wrote it very professionally. But that you say that worked, that something to the effect that it just may not have had it may have worked against the interests of the working class, the poor Black community, particularly in Atlanta. So I'm wondering, could you elaborate a little bit on that? And then if you could talk a little bit about, because I don't think this isn't the point of your book, but could you talk a little bit about Young's influence through to today on leadership, financial, political, and otherwise?
No, that's an excellent. Yeah, I could have had a chapter on the impact of Andrew Young, and I do talk about how he did seek to make Atlanta, quote unquote, a world-class city by drawing in, as you say, global capital, by trying to internationalize the city, try to see it as a kind of Fortune 100 city, which it now is. And Geechee mentioned public-private partnerships. That was, before that lingo was kind of popular, Andrew Young was out there kind of perfecting that. And it's no question that the city's reliance on the private sector to take the lead, but with city support and subsidy, goes back especially to Mayor Young. And of course, his proteges, some of them also worked for Maynard Jackson, but they were heavily influenced by Maynard Young. Shirley Franklin is still advising the current mayor. And she is the quintessential public-private partnership mayor. She finished basically the dissolution of public housing in the city, which really started before her, but she helped continue it. She also really was the champion of the Beltline in shaping it in a way that catered primarily to investors and private real estate capital, as opposed to let's make parks for people or let's do things for people. It's interesting that I'm not a fan of Mayor Young as a mayor of the city, but he was highly successful in what he wanted to do. He really did help bring in global capital into the city. That may explain partly why when the foreclosure crisis, really the 1990s foreclosure crisis, which was the first one and really hit, Atlanta was at the top of the charts in terms of subprime lenders, in terms of foreclosures. And then when it came around again, after the state, temporarily flirted with regulation, Atlanta again was one of the hot spots for foreclosures. And now the Atlanta region is a hot spot for global capital in terms of buying up single family homes. It's the number one region in the country. All of that is shaped by the kinds of supportive policies that not just Republican legislators in the state and the governor, but the Georgia Democratic Party and the Democratic system in Atlanta is one that is very investor friendly. And, that I do think Andrew Young had a big role in that. He's even today, I could get in trouble with my colleague because my college is named after the mayor, but it doesn't stop me. But even today, he's doing videos with John Hope Franklin about how financial literacy will save the Black community or save us.
John Hope Bryant.
Yeah, John Hope Bryant. Sorry.
We be mixing them too because he
I
got
the same thing. I kept doing the same thing, but we're talking about this guy right here.
Yes. Oh wow, you're quick. John Hope Bryant. That's who I'm thinking. That was a bad mistake. Sorry about that.
No.
We
we don't like that guy over here.
Yeah, we have a whole.
Yeah, he's problematic. Yeah, but the former mayor is. That kind of fits that financial literacy as, you can be rich just like Elon Musk, kind of peddling the global money as savior fits right in with his track record.
Oh, that's right. It is the Andy Young School of Policy, right? Public
Yeah,
policy
yeah.
studies. Right, right,
Oh,
right.
he
That's
is
hilarious.
very visible on campus.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
visible.
Oh, shit. Go ahead, Renee.
Interesting. So I'm, and this is just my own curiosity, because one of the things that has me following Atlanta so closely after 2020 was what's happening in Milani Park and with the Cop City. And I noticed that there's not much reference to policing or police or anything like that, in the book. And I'm just curious, like, is that intentional because it's just so much, or did you find that, like, the role of expanding the police and the over policing that happens within the city of Atlanta, the surveillance, like all of those things, did you just find that didn't really play much of a role in what you were researching?
No, it's a really good point. And if I had written the book a year later, it would have been a very different book. I mean, it would have had another chapter at least, and the chapters on Atlanta, the second and third chapter, which really focus on the city itself, would have been quite different. And I did specifically, and my editor specifically wanted me to focus on, development, housing, exclusion by gender, and obviously policing fits into that. But I kind of probably over constrain the topics. But then when the Cop City stuff kind of gained steam, right when I was finishing the book in 2021, my editor was like, nope, the book is already long enough. We don't want a long book. We want this to be a crossover book, to not just an academic tome. And to be honest, I was following everything, but I wasn't involved in it. I felt like and I know there are already some books in process on Cop City, of course, and I just didn't feel like I was the best position to go into that too much. But I still would have brought it in, and one of the reasons I would have brought it in was not so much the substance of policing and exclusion, which I think is really important. That's one reason, the how police facilitate gentrification, facilitate displacement, protect capital in that process, and really encourage that process, and also encourage organized abandonment that precedes gentrification, right? And I've written a little bit about that in other venues. But the whole Cop City organizing was such a game changer to me. I'm a little more depressed about it now, given where things are at, or less optimistic. But the success that the organizers had, that the community had, in pushing back on the regime, which it was a classic story of how the regime operates in terms of ACP and the police foundation. These are all kind of typical corporate players. And with the mayor taking such an aggressive kind of partnering with the attorney general and all the, bringing his forces to bear, not just state forces. But the fact that, 100,000 plus, well over 100,000 signatures were garnered, that all to me was the first time in my 20 plus years of being engaged in Atlanta where I saw the regime questioned significantly, meaning in a political way, where I saw it threatened. And that's going to, again, there's going to be 4 or 5 books on Cop City, I think, or related to Cop City. And that, to me, is the huge bright spot of Cop City. I got so excited when so many folks showed up at City Hall. The role the courts have played in stymieing that and reinforcing the regime is kind of something that I hope will be in these books, because pretty much the court stepped in and quelled the thing. So yeah, it's a huge missing piece, but I'm confident, knowing some of the people who are going to be writing books on this, I'm pretty confident it's going to be treated well. And I hope my book, I know at least one person who plans to, kind of draw on Red Hot City for the book.
Mm-hmm. So I've told Jared this a couple times, but you as well. Like, I wish that I had two professors like y'all two. When I was in college, I probably would be real hell in these streets. But I have a young organizer who I'm working with who's actually going to take your class next semester.
Oh, good.
But I'm more curious about your experience writing a book such as this at Georgia State. And then even when you talk about the Turner Field controversy and the Community Benefits Coalition was trying to struggle for that agreement, but your institution was like, nah.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, how's that working relationship?
Yeah, I'm not a team player when it comes to Georgia State.
Don't ever change that, Dan. Don't ever change that.
No, but let's talk about these revolutionary state universities.
Yeah, right. But I do have to say, Georgia State is particularly weak in terms of they're great faculty, and some faculty get very involved. But in terms of the institution, it's been, a cheerleader for what happened with Turner Field, not just effectively a financial partner in terms of a lot of nonprofit space that doesn't get taxed, but also a cheerleader for Turner, its partner. And yeah, some of the language that the previous president of the university, Becker, used was abhorrent. I was not at Georgia State at the time, but I was somewhat tangentially involved with that. Some of my former students were working with the Turner Field Coalition. I gave them some kind of, offhand advice here and there. But part of Georgia State is, and I find this particularly true, both the previous president and the current president, they don't want to be Georgia State. They want to be the University of Georgia in downtown Atlanta. They want to be, this is not unique to Georgia State. A lot of kind of urban public serving institutions. I grew up in Detroit, so Wayne State, in Chicago, UIC, University. These are important institutions for cities. They educate a ton of folks. They help folks. GSU is minority white. If it's not majority Black, African American serving institution, it will be soon. And I think that's something to celebrate. And I feel like the PR folks are kind of like, don't emphasize that. But the current president wants to make Georgia State feel more like a real campus. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good to me. I mean, they've got an $80 million grant from the Woodruff Foundation to work on this campus redesign. I think he went to Georgia Tech for part of his education. I think he wants it to look like Georgia Tech, which is fine, but it's not an urban institution. Georgia Tech happens to be in the city, but it's a traditional campus that's not part of the city, really. And I love GSU the way it is in lots of ways. They've done some good physical improvements that I think are useful for the students, but it's almost like they're running away from the fact that 2/3 of the students are commuters, and I think that's fine. I think that's great. A lot of financial aid, a lot of Pell Grant students. I think that's stuff to be proud of. And I also think that, the administration, well, let's just say it was even before the book came out. I've been outspoken. It's not like the book was the first thing I did that was outspoken against city policy or city stuff. My previous dean, who I had some issues with over COVID because we had such terrible COVID policies, she would organize meetings with city council people and city leaders, and she would intentionally cut me out of those meetings. I mean, because I am one of the higher profile faculty members in terms of city issues. There's probably 10 faculty that do a lot kind of publicly. My colleague, Tanya Washington, is also kind of in the similar, really pushing back on the city around eminent domain and other issues. I've seen her cut out of things. And yeah, it's just, it's a lot of cheerleading. The upper administration is more so than Georgia Tech was. I was at Georgia Tech for 12 years, and Georgia Tech would just leave me alone, and that's fine. But they wouldn't cut me out of things. They wouldn't, for example, GSU just had a forum on affordable housing and displacement. They invited no faculty members to be on that panel, even though there's about 6 of us that have done a ton. Why? Because we're all critical of the city. They just invited outsiders who, are just part of the regime, basically.
Now, that's always my favorite when folks are like, what can we do to have a university-wide discussion of this or that topic? I'm at a loss while they're sitting around dozens of faculty who have written and studied on that very subject. It's just it's fascinating. I don't think you deal with him much in your book, but as again another person that I'm always ready to be critical of.
He does a little bit.
A little bit. Okay, look, I'm still traumatized. I co-authored a paper on this dude and had to watch all of his movies. I see in the process.
I was trying to guess when I saw the notes.
Yeah, so Tyler Perry, just where does Tyler Perry figure in all that you are saying, and how does he fit within the context that you're describing here?
He is, I think, an exemplar of Black co-optation in the regime, but from someone who's kind of a fly in, fly out, right? Kind of has a more tenuous connection to the city in some ways. But the whole base redevelopment thing was a big gift to him. I think it was pretty explicit. Maria Saporta, who I often don't agree with things, was really good at tracking that in Saporta report and showing, basically how much he underpaid for the property, and then the whole kind of disconnection of the property from the community, even though there had been a whole community-based plan coming out of the BRAC process and, calling for connection to the community and opportunities, yet he was not only given this low price, absurdly low price now, but, on valuable public land. But
so are you saying there was the original? I'm sorry to cut you off, but are you saying
the original price? Yeah, the original price. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was asking about, because you said something about the original plan was to be more community based. Are you saying that
more connected, community connected, so not fenced off?
And they felt blindsided too by that.
Oh yeah, yeah. There were folks who just
the police
felt like
saw the police have plenty of access to it.
There were folks who spent. I mean, I had some students involved, and we did some studios, planning studios, where students worked with the community members. That was somewhat federally funded process, and then boom, it just disappeared. It really is bad. But then, it's not just, for me, it's not just Tyler Perry. There's a certain rapper who has become quite supportive of you're looking for a name. I'm not gonna give you a name, man.
Oh, it's my man Mike. It's gotta be my man.
It can't be the flute playing Andre 3000.
No. Yeah, the whole kind of implicitly supporting Kemp, and then the George Floyd unrest response. I mean, I don't know what drives these
That's
guys.
why he loved Kasim Reed so much, I guess.
Yeah. But they are kind of celebrity. It's funny because maybe somebody has written. I'd like to read what you've written about Tyler Perry, but
just that his movies are whack. The paper's okay. We don't have to. I don't need to take. You don't need to take up a whole hour or two to read it.
I do think
it's 20 to 30 pages of his movies.
Should write about this new era of co-optation involving entertainment figures in terms of urban policy. I don't think I've read about that before, even though it's obviously out there.
Yeah, there's a couple. I was in fact just reading something from someone I have a couple issues with, but who was apparently doing. I have to go back more closely before I put their name on this, but who wrote a couple years ago about Black celebrity being co-opted in a way that looks like. I just found this recently myself, but the corruptive nature of our environment is pretty strong. But no, the Tyler Perry, the point was really just to identify white supremacist, anti-Black, anti-class analyses, or an anti-class analysis, or an analysis of his anti-class content in his films. That's what I was trying to say. So it was, and it's some years ago, so it's probably even needs to be updated given the amount of movies he's made. But that was really it. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. But nothing. But to your point, our paper, now that I'm remembering, we didn't speak specifically to, in passing, maybe the role of celebrity and in corrupting politics and narrative, but not much. Yeah.
Renee, do you have something? Got another question.
Sorry.
You're right. No. I'm not. You don't. No, I'm not being petty, which you misspelled here, Griffin, in ignoring Antonio Moore. It's that Antonio Moore's Decadent Veil is itself a rebranding of much older work. So it's not that I was intentionally looking to leave him out, but I mean, he did give a nice brand name to something that people have been writing about for a long time. This is again why Kwame Ture said so many years ago, Black visibility is not Black power. There is a corruptive element to popularity and placement and visibility. But yeah, okay, but all his reverse hashtag politics backwards notwithstanding, all tribute to Moore and his contribution there. Sorry about that, everybody. Renee, go ahead.
No, you're good. There was a question. There was a statement in the chat. Blacks have been moved out to old suburbs to allow for inner city gentrification. And I thought it was an interesting take because in your book, what you actually highlight is that there was a massive move out of the inner city into the suburbs in search of peace, right? And so there were, in light of the high level of racism and all of the community organizing amongst the racist whites to create harm and all these things, like in search of trying to find spaces where they can live in peace and not feel under the pressure of all of that racism. Blacks actually were seeking to create neighborhoods outside of the urban areas. And this is part of the historical nature of Atlanta that I thought was really interesting. And because somebody brought that up, and I know we don't have you for much longer, but would you mind talking about this transition of Atlanta actually in general? And if you could touch upon, because I thought this was really interesting, how as the city of Atlanta became majority Black, that's when it became poor, right? And the intentional sucking out of resources and finances and all these things out of the city once they discovered that there were too many Black folks living there. I know those are two totally different questions in a way, but if you could touch on those, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, and and this is one that it's funny because I just saw a piece somewhere about food deserts and the increase in food deserts in Black communities, and they were like, well, this has been going on forever, but it's just more aggravated now. And before I came to Atlanta, I did community development work in Chicago, and I'm like, yeah, I think that's been there for a long time. Retail redlining, investment redlining, on top of bank redlining. Kind of, again, organized abandonment through policy, urban renewal. I do write about that some in the book. As soon as neighborhoods were kind of slated for urban renewal, Larry Keating, an old friend of mine, former professor at Tech, wrote about how these neighborhoods, just Black and white folks left, or at least the Black folks who could leave. And that just exacerbated everything. But yeah, I mean, the reason that the city, that Atlanta was the leading metro for Black suburban development in the mid to later part of the 20th century was trying to get away from organized violence, to try to get away from organized abandonment, try to find a better place. There's a great book called Place of Our Own by Andrew Weiss on Black suburbanization. Atlanta is one of the key cities he writes about. Of course, some of those early suburbs became absorbed into the city with annexation in 52, but then you just saw a spread of Black suburbanization outside of Fulton County, DeKalb County being the biggest one. And that suited at least the kind of urban regime, because, right, here's the mayors in the 20th century trying to maintain a white majority for a while. So encouraging Black suburbanization was, they're actually, I talk about these in the book, and I think I have a picture of one of them. If you go onto GSU's digital collections, you'll find all these maps made by official city planners and also the predecessor of ARC, Atlanta Regional Commission, making these maps of planning for new Black suburbs, basically, to basically allow for less Black concentration in the city. So it was an effort to try to maintain white political power structure by encouraging Black suburbs. But at the same time, as you say, Renee, people were trying to avoid a system that had all kinds of problems within the city and set up their own communities. But without, a commercial tax base, without, with continued redlining of commercial properties, that's really hard to set up functional suburbs that rely on middle and lower income property values and have no commercial tax base.
Wow. If we can, just quickly before we wrap, I'm curious. I haven't had a chance to read that much of your book yet, but what comes up all the time is our questions about solutions, and I'm wondering to what extent you offer any in yours. If you've come here, you've rocked with us a little bit on being critical of financial literacy, on global capital being an all-solving Band-Aid or solution. What do cities need? What do you think should happen to fix whatever?
And real quick, because I think Jared was in my head, and I appreciate that. So yeah, I was going to ask similar, but more so of like, what is responsive? What would you call responsible reinvestment? And then, are there some policies out there that you think that we should?
Sure. So the big lesson in the book the book is intentionally, I avoided kind of a book for planners, for here's a laundry list of policies. I think those are out there and I can point people to them, community land trusts, various kind of, but some of the solutions are kind of very implicit in the book, like fix the damn corporate property tax system. That's pretty obvious. But at the end of the book, I talk about how do you get there politically. And to me, Atlanta is like many other southern cities, I think, or Sunbelt cities, newer Sunbelt cities compared to older industrial cities, has a very weak organizing structure. I mean, I think Atlanta is the largest metro that I know of that has no statewide, no really substantive statewide or metro-wide tenant organizing system. Now, Housing Justice League is working on developing that, which I think is great. They're having meetings specifically around rent control, and they're established, so they're on their way, hopefully. But, you know, many states have statewide tenant organizations where any tenant can be a member. So that's different than organizing building by building, which is good. But if you have 50,000 members across the state or across the metro, and you have members in every legislative district, that's a power that doesn't exist from building by building organizing. And you got to do both. But it's combining. The other thing is, you know, all this money went into the state during the 2020 election, and in terms of organizing, political organizing, and then it stopped. And if we can't do long-term organizing around issues, around housing, around food, around incarceration or decarceration, and combine that with the ability to organize around state legislation and city legislation, then I don't, you know, to me, that's the crux. Political power is lacking. There's very little oppositional organizing in Atlanta, in my mind, that at least in my area, in housing, urban development. I think in other areas it's stronger. But, you know, I'm in Chicago right now. Chicago has this long history of community development organizing. It has advisory groups at the city level of grassroots organizers. It has a strong coalition to end homelessness that is out there. I see it out there weekly, organizing against city policies that are bad. Atlanta just needs much more muscular organizing. Community movement builders, you know, kind of on steroids.
Oh, I was waiting to start joking on Kamau. I was ready. Because all I heard was Kamau ain't doing nothing in Atlanta.
No slander over here. No slander over here.
That's all I heard. No, I'm just playing.
No, I mean,
I
should say I've seen more, especially in housing, in the last, really since COVID. Community movement builders, the Guild, the groups that are we're meeting at least regularly to talk about, you know, let's push back on this corporate under taxation of real estate. Let's push back on this stuff. It's much more active than I had seen it before COVID.
Right on.
And so very quickly, because I missed this, and do you have time? Do you have a minute for one last question from the chat?
Oh, there it is. Speak to how zoning and master planning is used. Oh, yeah. That's a big one. So can I speak to how zoning and master planning is used to advance gentrification? It's a big one because there are very little, I mean, I think the key one is we plan without impact. You know, you set up these master planning documents, maybe you allow for denser housing, but to do denser housing without affordable housing is not going to help folks in places like Pittsburgh neighborhood. And it's just going to I don't think it's the key factor in gentrifying a neighborhood, but it's just allowing it to happen. And some of the kind of abundant housing folks say, well, it's better to densify than not densify, marginally, but without significant dollars going into affordable housing in places that are ripe for more gentrification or new gentrification, you're going to get gentrification. You're going to get displacement and exclusion. The answer to gentrification has to be deeply affordable housing. That has to be the answer. It's how Paris does it, where you can have very desirable neighborhoods where 30 to 40% of the folks are low income. That doesn't happen. You also will see that in New York City. Why? Because New York City has more affordable housing than any other city, because it has spent a lot more than any other city. Washington, D.C., not perfect, but they've done a lot more than Atlanta has. And so it can't just be zoning. I kind of reject, it needs to be inclusionary housing policy. And I don't just mean inclusionary housing law. I mean a policy that says, if we're going to allow, apartment buildings here, we need to see subsidy. We need to see money coming into this neighborhood for deeply affordable housing. The regulatory approach by itself can't do it. You can't just say, okay, developer, I'm all for inclusionary housing policies. But what they're going to do without subsidy is just bring in middle class folks, because they can't force the developer, not under Georgia law, they can't force the developer to provide deeply affordable housing without dollars. It's just the way it is.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm on chapter 3, and I plan to finish reading it. I'm very, very interested in the historical part of this, like how Atlanta got to where it is right now, and some of the things that played into it getting to where it is right now, which I feel like is really important information. Somebody complaining in the chat that we don't have good guests. I don't know how to address that. Like, I don't know how you move forward and address anything that's happening right now without adequately understanding the historical references and how things got to where they are. And so,
sometimes we don't have good people in the chat either. So what's the big, we're in all, what? That's ridiculous.
No, I completely agree. That's why chapter 1, I had to do it. And my editor said, do we really need a chapter on the 20th century? I said, I can't write about the 21st century.
I agree. And that to me was so eye-opening. Some of the movement and understanding some of the things that played a role. And I ended up actually down a rabbit hole looking at how the 1949 federal funding law, and I don't remember what the name of it, but how that played out in multiple places, because it's also playing out in Philly and was part of what happened in bottom, whatever that area is in Philadelphia that got rebuilt by all the colleges. So there, there's like there's a thread here, right? Like there's a thread for how all of this works, and it's all connected. And I think it's important that we understand. Yes, Black Bottom. Thank you, Rob. But thank you, Dan. It was really
thank you very much.
I appreciate you bringing on very much. Thank you.
We're gonna raise some money to send you to Ghana and see if you can figure out that red hot city over there, because people. So we need you to do some research over there too.
Appreciate you. Okay,
thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
All right. Other than Geechee getting credit, I appreciated the guest. I appreciate that discussion.
I agree too.
What you? I know I'm not one. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all.
No. No, I'm glad you brought this book. This was really, really I'm very curious now as to how much of this has played out in multiple places. Like, I thought it was interesting that he brought up New York City, right? And I don't know if you all are aware this like City of Yes thing that just got passed by the city council that's supposed to bring in like 80,000 more homes right? But yeah. There's this whole expansion thing that Mayor Adams is trying to do in New York City, but at the core of it, it's all about developers and money and capitalism, right? Like it really has less to do with actually providing housing, right? Because you don't need to build 80,000 more more dwellings in New York City. Like there's plenty of empty houses and empty apartments in New York City, and they all exist because it's overpriced and people can't afford it, right? Like it's absurd the amount of empty buildings and empty apartments that exist right now in New York City. So to have this whole thing that's happening now with this expansion, and when you look at, and I had actually put, and I apologize to both of you, I put all my links and stuff in the regular Saturday show spreadsheet and realized it at like 10:30, and I was like, whoops a daisy. So I moved it all to the
now I'm leaving.
So I moved it all to the with Geechee sheet, so that, because I thought this was, and I mean, when I tell you it's all connected, and it's something that I want us to explore. But we have 2 more guests. So when Zoe and Sadie are ready, you have to like turn cameras on so we know we can pull you on. But for folks, and there is a link, Jared, in the with Geechee sheet for the panel. So tomorrow,
let's bring up our guests. Welcome. And then I will open up the whatchamacallit.
So tomorrow on the channel, we are going to be hosting a panel that will be moderated by Dr. Ball. And for folks who don't come every week, I am part of also a newsroom called Public Square Amplified. And one of the things that we try to really do is kind of bring in younger voices and have conversations with younger folks about the different things that are happening. So on September 15th, as part of Democracy Day, we had a panel with some young folks about the upcoming election and what some thoughts were and everything. And then we decided, you know what, let's bring everybody back now that the election is done and the selection is made, to have a conversation about what Gen Z is seeing and thinking with regard to what happens now and moving forward. So we're bringing back all the same people, although I think Richard can't come, we just found out. But
I'll take Richard's place since I'm a young folk too.
You just think you're young folk.
I know.
You don't stop. You're not. I can't. So introducing Zoe and Sadie. Ladies, thank you for joining us. I just wanted to give some time for us to talk about the panel and some of the things that we have coming, and to invite folks to come back tomorrow at 3 p.m. to listen to Dr. Ball and these young folks talking about what's happening coming up.
Yeah, so, welcome back to the both of you. Good to see you both again. Welcome.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So, Zoe, why don't you start and talk about like what is coming?
Yeah. So for this coming panel, I think we're trying to kind of strike a balance between looking at what kind of just happened and then also looking at where we're going from here, what it looks like for our generation to kind of figure ourselves out. I think like we really had a certain image going for us 4 years ago that is not really reflected, especially not in our voting and in just kind of in general. I think like the way our generation is shaping up is looking a little different, and I think we need to kind of figure out where we're going from here. And part of that is having conversations and kind of figuring these things out. I mean, none of us really have exactly the right answers, but all of it really starts with conversation. And yeah, I think like another big part of Public Square is like civics and civic education. And a big part of civics, I think, that does get overlooked is the need to keep talking. There's a Kwame Ture quote that I really like, which is that I'm blanking on it exactly, but it's to the effect of saying that like there's a misconception that your political responsibility starts and ends on election day, and that politics is every single day. And I think like this panel, especially as a follow-up, is really powerful about cementing that, because I mean, we had a panel pre-election day to kind of address what was happening, but the fact that we're doing a post-election panel I think is pretty big too, because it's cementing that importance of continuing to talk and continuing to kind of address whatever the current landscape is, because you need to be able to address it in order to start working with it. But yeah.
Sadie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Sadie Springer. I'm a student at Brown focusing on international and public affairs. And yeah, I think in this conversation, this post-election conversation, we've had a lot of pre-meetings where we've been kind of trying to strike a balance between not finger pointing, but figuring out where the DNC went wrong with the election, but then also looking towards the future and figuring out, okay, where do we go from here and what does realignment look like? And, it's very easy to get cynical, but like what we as Gen Z can do. And then also we've been having a lot of conversations about like what specifically Gen Z is being exposed to on social media, what like specific issues, and then also like what issues that we don't have exposure to and that are distractions. And yesterday we talked a lot about propaganda and what that looks like and how we can deconstruct that. So I think it's going to be a really great conversation. We have a lot of amazing other panelists as well. And I feel like we have a decently wide range of perspectives and we're all coming with different topics. So I think it's going to be great.
Right on. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, Jared, I was gonna say, Jared, do you have anything to add? I wanted to bring them on, and I don't want to tax poor Zoe. I be on text message with Zoe like, but I also don't want us to get into too much, because I really want people to come back tomorrow at 3:00 and participate. Like watch the conversation and participate in the panel, and you'll be able to ask questions because we'll be live streamed as long as you're a member. A subscriber to the channel. But Jared, do you have anything that you want to add? Or
no, not really, not that, and only that which would lead or invite and maybe oversharing in advance of tomorrow. But I mean, one thing I did, but I'll just maybe as a preview, one thing I am interested in hearing from all of you is to how you generally feel after the election. To what extent were folks hopeful for one or another outcome? To what extent did that outcome attach itself to your overall aspirations politically? And then how do you feel now? And then you feel free to measure your answers, given that this is a quick preview. But yeah, that was really personally, selfishly, my biggest interest in wanting to learn from you, hear from you all.
Yeah, Sadie, do you want to take it first, or?
Yeah, sure. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but initially, not like that I was a big fan of Kamala, but the initial like shock of like, okay, I'm not going to see, a Black woman in office, and then kind of deconstructing that and realizing like what she's representative of isn't, representative of Black liberation. So it's like representation for representation's sake. But still, I felt like, social media, I was mourning that. I kept seeing all this discourse about like, of course, a rapist got elected and not a Black woman. And, like holding two truths, like being able to mourn, like, yes, I'm not going to see someone that looks like me in office, but then also like, okay, but like, what is she really representative of? And she's like, she's a centrist, and she wouldn't have, radically changed our political landscape. But, now we have someone that could in the opposite direction. And so, I don't know, I think the initial was kind of sadness and a little bit of hopelessness. And now I think it's shifting more to how I can kind of combat this and what measures we can take to kind of do some damage control and what that looks like. So, yeah.
As for me, I don't know if I really like saw it going one way or the other fully. And I voted third party, so I guess like my take on it was I wasn't really trying to conform to the two-party system, and I didn't vote for Harris. But my general observation was that a lot of both campaigns were really run on emotion. And out of the people I've talked to in my generation, like who've voted either way, who voted for Harris, who voted for Trump, a lot of it seems like it's been sort of rooted on like emotional appeals in a lot of ways, or to tie into what Sadie said, on a lot of like representation or identity politics and stuff like that. But in terms of how I'm feeling like post results, I feel like it's, and I've kind of started thinking about it this way only within the last couple of weeks or few, is that, and granted, part of this is due to the structure of the government and the fact that we do have age caps in terms of when you can start running for some of these offices in the government. But I mean, Gen Z makes up 20% of the population, and that doesn't even include the generations younger than us. So there's a pretty big, substantial part of the population that is young. And as of the last Congress, I mean, like the median age in the House, I think, was 58, and in the Senate, it was 65. And granted, I know that like a lot of members of our generation can't run yet, but even that might be something that we want to like kind of call into question and consider. I mean, it seems like, I don't want to draw too hard on like assumption or anything, but it doesn't really seem like a lot of people in especially the highest levels of the government really have much intention of passing the torch, especially when we're starting to see members of the government who are well into their late 70s, 80s, almost 90s. And so our generation has a lot of things at stake. I mean, there's the eco side, there's the war machine, there's imperialism, there's capitalism, there's all these things that we're going to have to deal with for the next 80, 90 years, possibly, if we live that long. But there's so much at stake for our generation, and yet we have such little representation in the government at this point. And now with Trump's new appointees, that's like even more of an issue now, it seems like. So my biggest thing that I've been thinking of is just like, what is it going to look like for Gen Z? Like, are we going to just passively end up inheriting some political framework that's not going to work for us? Or are we going to have to claim a stake in the US political theater? Are we going to have to claim that power? And what does that look like for us, especially when a lot of us are too young to run at this age? But it seems like it's more pressing than ever. That's where my head's been at.
Right on. Thank you.
And there you go. That's why y'all got to come back tomorrow. Geechee, you were quiet. Did you have a question or are you good?
Nah, y'all ain't want none of the young brothers to speak, so I'm gonna just be quiet.
No, that's what we do. We silence the youth. We silence the youth around here. We're lucky these two guests got a chance to say anything.
Okay. And I want Zoe to know that David is going to share his gold plate from the cookout with you. And I don't know if you even understand how big that is. If David is
I do, and I was
got your back.
Wow. That's huge.
That's major.
Unbelievable. So again, everybody, that's tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, live right here on Black Liberation Media, this panel. So come on back and make sure you just in general have the bell rung so you don't miss it. But yeah, tomorrow, 3 o'clock.
Zoe, Sadie, thank you for jumping on real quick, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right on. Thank you both very much. Oh wow. Yikes. Yikes. God.
Wait. I'm eating my seaweed chips. My bad, David.
Like who's out here giving away
the
passes?
Conversation that's happening right now.
Yeah.
What people say? Sipping their tea. I'm eating my seaweed chips on the.
You always eating. I can't with you, yo.
We only here
And
for a few more minutes, my man.
I can't. I know
You can't hold on a second.
I had
This
a,
is
I had a
so
rough,
unprofessional.
I had a rough morning, man. I had a rough morning.
You always having rough mornings.
Saturday mornings are rough. First Saturdays of every month is a rough Saturday. I'm telling you.
Did you Did you move?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. There you go. So, since I did take the time to throw some of this stuff on, and it all is actually very, very much connected. This gentrification thing. I fell down such a rabbit hole, y'all. I really did. And there's no spreadsheet because when I fell down, I was just like, oof, like what is happening right now? So this is from this city of yes thing for housing that's happening. And New York City is very, very interesting with regard to housing because our homeless population is totally out of control. And the idea that they're right. So New York City is getting like $5 billion and it's supposed to be going towards this increasing of housing. They claim that they're going to be, pushing for increasing available and affordable housing in different parts of the city. But if you scroll down, there's like a map in this article that shows like, where the places are. So,
hey, Ricky being petty in the chat.
Oh,
Air Doctor said there was two sides to gentrification. There's two sides. You got to understand the other side.
Listen.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, I guess there's the shitty side and the really shitty side. Yeah,
there's the slave and the slave master too. It's two sides to everything. That's why I used to make that joke in journalism school when they would talk all that objectivity stuff. I'd be like, "You're right," and we're going to transport us all back to the plantation, and we're going to send half of our reporters to the field, half to the master's house, and then we're going to co-write in a balanced discussion of slavery.
If y'all not a DJ, y'all need to chill out before we lose our DJ. Stop. Let up. Let them go. Shout out to Air.
I mean, there's plenty of things that I guess you can two-side any conversation, but I feel like that statement of there's always a right side of history to be on, right? Anywho. So the map. So this map explains like, where are the places that they're gonna like focus this, these housing projects, and where they're looking at doing some of these expansions. And if you look, you don't really have to look real hard to see.
What does it mean when they're saying favorable and unfavorable? What does that mean?
I mean, what do you think it means?
Who voted? Who's in favor of this? Is that what it means?
No, it's where is it favorable to increase this house, to put this housing, and where is it not favorable?
Oh, I see.
So if you're looking at building all your housing along the riverfront and the places that are easily accessible to the riverfront and on the island of Manhattan, and like, it's just, the whole thing is absurd, like really and truly, right? And I started to say this before we brought Zoe and Sadie on, like,
Queens is like, no, poor people.
No, it's just no in Queens. Like, I cannot wrap my head around this whole thing of like this increased housing and we're going to bring 80,000 homes in, and why are we doing this? And the only thing that I can come up with for why we are doing this is because Eric Adams is in bed with all of the real estate developers. And so this is going to benefit him in some way. And down the line, like, it's not going to actually be beneficial to people who actually need housing in New York City because the homeless population is totally out of control. But it's funny because, this, right? And you see what color Staten Island is. I mean, Long Island, Like all these places where you have single family homes and probably a good chunk of non-white people, they're not doing it there. All they're going to do is overcrowd the places that are already crowded, or create housing in places where more people can't afford housing. It is the word. I just don't understand. I don't understand.
Did y'all see the maybe New York needs the that thing I sent y'all, the gentrification task force committee?
Yes, you did send this.
Like they got in Atlanta. And they pretty much tell you where all of the low income susceptible to displacement, early ongoing gentrification in the city. So text Mayor Adams and tell him we need to get that committee and put you on the committee, Renee.
Listen, I mean, they did a whole committee in Atlanta and it didn't stop anything, right? I mean, he talked about it in the book that there was a whole committee and they put forward recommendations, and none of the recommendations that would have prevented people from getting booted out of their houses were put into place, and they all just lost their housing. And I mean, in the end, really and truly, when you look at how this all plays out, in the end, it's all about how can we most make money off of places where poor people live now that we feel like, you know, could be better fit to make money off of. So let's get the poor folks out and then we'll rebuild everything. And, you know, I mean, it's, I don't know. I look at Brooklyn now as someone who grew up in Brooklyn, and it's like a totally different place, right? Like downtown Brooklyn don't look nothing like downtown Brooklyn looked when I was a kid. And so it's just, and I don't know how we organize around this, because I feel like all of the powers that be and all of the people who could have any role in stopping this they're all in bed with it, right? Like they're good. They're not going to lose their house. So they're good with like just doing whatever, right? I mean, do y'all see that, or is it just like it's just me?
No, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know nearly enough about it, but it just seems. I know we're talking about New York real estate, so I don't. But when I read 5 billion and then I see like where's it going in terms like is not a lot of spots on the map. I just feel like somebody flipped another real life crisis into a personal payday,
right?
Or, you know, for them and their contractor buddies. But it doesn't. I mean, you know, again, I don't know what 5 billion, if it were all invested in housing, to what extent, how far that goes in New York real estate. But I just feel like first of all, it's not going to be 5 billion all going towards affordable housing. But you know, looking at that map, and my point is looking at the map and looking at the money, it doesn't seem to match.
Right.
But you know, I'm sure we can trust Adams and New York City officials, and I'm sure they'll figure it out for the good of us all.
Yeah. KRS-One ain't gonna get it right.
Yeah, I mean, between them, you know, I'm sure they'll.
I can't. So this led me, as I said earlier, to looking at Philadelphia, which was on my brain already for another road that we'll get to. I think we'll have time to get to it. So this whole Black Bottom in Philadelphia is fascinating. It is fascinating to read about how all of these colleges got together and basically booted out all the Black people and all the poor people and all the people. Like it's wild. And I was
they needed to get rid of the Black community to make room for the study of, exploitation of, and then the housing of the bones of the Black community.
Right.
Because isn't this where the move
Black
bodies were didn't they end up
at
in
Penn? Yeah.
They
ended up at Penn.
So you got to make room for the warehousing. I'm just saying it makes perfect sense, Renee. I just don't understand why you don't see it. It's just so clear.
I just feel like this is happening everywhere and has been happening in multiple places at the same time. And it's like every other system that creates untenable and unlivable situations for people, right? Like when you start really reading about what happened in Black Bottom, it's crazy. And a lot of it goes back to that federal law that was passed in 1949, the Housing Act. And I just didn't know. And so, I really want to encourage people to take some time to look at how these things are playing in multiple areas and to kind of see the battles that were waged, right? Like the 70 housing units, and they were fighting to try to prevent those from getting torn down, and it ended up not working, if I remember correctly, right? Like those 70 units were taken over. So that just reminds me, I got to get back to Jared Ware, because they were able to do something with housing in Philadelphia that I'd really like to learn more about.
Clearly, the Black folks that were there didn't do enough to buy Black and circulate their dollar to save the community. And were too financially illiterate to prevent public policy from coming in and removing them. Yeah. I mean, this is, again, just speaks to the whole thing. It's by design. So it said there's segregation by design. And they said these Black folks got prime real estate. We want it. I even quickly saw there that they said they took down all the sort of condensed row housing and moved all those people out, and then built new high rises that don't house as many people as were there in the first place. So it's and again, it's policy. It's not the failure of those Black people to have somehow done something wrong with what they had access to. It's those in power had their plans, wanted to redesign the city in their favor, even further in their favor, and that was that.
Right. And this brings me back to my always conundrum, right? So the people who are writing and making and allowing these policies to go through are the people that are in power, and they are in part in power because people who are so sick of the system don't participate to get those people out. It's the conundrum. It lives on. Everything I see goes back to me trying to figure out how do you fix something that is intentionally broken. So
the answer is
you've been dying to pull it out.
That's the answer. Get us some money. Let the white boys keep the power. Let's just get a little bit of a piece of money.
Right, because John Hope is telling us y'all are wrong.
I'm so glad I got you to make that.
Get your credit rating up. Me too. I am too. Get your credit rating up, and you don't have any more problems.
Get a little piece of money. Get a little piece of money, and mind your business.
So to understand the craziness of how this is all connected, right? UPenn, seconded by Temple University, which is, when I discovered this, I was like, wait, this cannot be true. Did you know that UPenn has the largest university police department in the country?
Oh, wow.
Damn. Didn't.
Like large, how many? Like how big?
It's bigger than Morgan State's. I swear to God, there's nothing bigger than Morgan State.
If I hold on, let me, because
I'm sure you're right. It just sometimes feels like, because every time I turn around, I saw you. Did I share the trauma I witnessed? This would have been, I think, 2 semesters ago. Because there's a police. They added that police station right next to the building I work in on Northwood Shopping Center. And so you got cops over there all over the place. And one day I'm parking the car, get ready to go in, and there's one pissing in the street. Mm-hmm. Right there in the parking lot in front of the building.
A cop?
And I'm a cop. And I'm like, my man, the bill. Let me clarify. I did not say anything to him. I was thinking, the building's right here. Your station is right down the street.
Right.
There's students here. There's kids here.
But none of that matters. So, and the reason I got to UPenn having the largest, if not one of the largest, but when I read what I read was it has the largest police, and there's 121 officers, which is a lot for a college campus. That's a lot for a college campus, right?
It's not for the campus.
Cities.
It's not for the campus. Exactly. And so, and then behind it, apparently not too far behind it, is Temple University, which is also in, you guessed it, Philadelphia, right? And so, so again, like dating back to the connections, which is why I was really glad I asked Dan the question about policing not being part of his book, because I was like, wait, what, like, where's the chapter on how all of this played in with the cop city and the police and the, all this stuff, like that has to be part of this, especially when you consider how broadly used police are in order to gentrify areas, right? Like they are literally part of the process of getting people out. I got to this place because I was reading an article about a family in Springfield, Virginia, and that the article's in there. I think it's the FBI Gaza one. So next you're here, it's this one, Jared. So a family in Springfield, Virginia, their home was raided by, wait, is that the, wait, you might have went to the Penn one.
I don't know.
So the one that's highlighted yellow, the one that I'm backtrack. I'm starting from the newest one, and then I'm going to backtrack because I need people to understand how this is all connected. Did I highlight the wrong one, Jared?
I don't know. Probably not. No, I'm sure.
Okay. This is the one.
So because it's the same. Okay, it's both intercept. They're both the same author. Okay.
Right.
All right. Gotcha.
So a family home in Springfield, Virginia was raided by the FBI and the George Mason police. It was raided because of a graffiti investigation. Why we're sending armed raid police from the federal government into people's homes about paint on the floor, whatever the paint was is beyond me. But
why is this why?
That's why. That's why. Bruh, that's why. So there are two young ladies who live in the home who attended George Mason, were part of the student movement, the Students for Justice in Palestine. They've both been suspended for 4 years, which means neither one of them are going to be able to finish their degree. And spray paint, and we're sending the FBI and the state police to invade a home, like a family home, and someone in the house works for the state. I think they're like a firefighter or something. So, so
Ben Mansky teaches there. I didn't know that. Okay, my bad.
You be picking up like the wildest. Like
I'm just looking at this for the first time. We don't know each other. I mean, we know, know each other. I think. Well, I know who he is. I'll just say that. I don't, but I didn't realize he was there. That's interesting. Okay,
right.
Sorry about that.
This is something that I think people need to like pay attention to, because this is happening in multiple places now, right? So George Mason University, for folks that do not know, is in Fairfax County. It's probably like 11, 12 miles outside of DC. You can take the train from DC.
And it's got to be in like a top 10 richest counties, right?
Yeah. I mean, Fairfax is definitely one of the richer counties. Yeah. But I will say, when I used to work in Fairfax in the early 2000s, George Mason was not like a big deal school, right? Like it was pretty low key. It was like the local school. Folks weren't really excited. But then the basketball team went to the NCAA tournament. in the early 2000s. I don't remember what year it was, but then they started to have like this kind of blow up, right? So this has happened in Springfield, Virginia. In the article, they mentioned something that happened, right? Like, this is crazy. The FBI and the school police kicked down these people's door because of graffiti. Okay. So in the article, they mention the other article, which is from UPenn.
Can I just, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but you know, because I watch, you know, I'm no better than a lot of folks. I watch a lot of these stupid ass series that come out on whatever platform, and a lot of them involve all of these anti-terror groups, special mission forces, this, that, and the third. And you would have the impression, if you just watch all of this, that every door being kicked down has some legit violent threat on the other end. But but it's true. You couldn't. How successful would a series be if it featured people getting all, you know, tooled up and click clack invested, and they getting all and to go kick down the door of two students who spray painted some stuff, like, you know what I'm saying? It would be like the series. It just don't work if we saw what they're actually out here doing, you know. Anyway, sorry for that.
No, you're good. So it's just, you know, so then you track to this story that happened at Penn, and this was like a month and a half ago, where again, the university police and the FBI kicks down the door of a student housing, again, because of vandalism. And again, because it's tied to students who are in support of Palestine.
And again, with assault rifles.
Right. Over paint on a statue.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I mean, look at that. Look at that. I mean, because clearly these officers are in danger here.
Right. I mean, all of this. You got all of this for a statue.
And two, well, three, I don't know, a handful of young folks standing there with flags. And these folks are out here like, look at, they got the nightsticks and all.
Those are all the guards who stop and frisk all the students before they go into the Du Bois house. Yeah, that's dope. They stop and frisk.
So this happened at Penn in October, and then that happened in Virginia like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And these are not likely to be the only stories. They're just the only two that I caught as I was doing this reading. And I got to these because I was reading a story about three middle school teachers in Philadelphia who got suspended because they helped their Palestinian students make posters in support of Palestine. Like, I mean, we are on such a track right now within this country of
that Donald Trump administration is just terrible. I mean, I can't believe that they just do all the right.
right.
Oh wait.
And it's, you know, it's just one of those things that I feel like people should be because this is what's going to irritate me is that when this continues to happen, because it will continue to happen, right? I mean, after all, we are still literally supporting the murder of thousands of people on the other side of the world, right? So when this continues to happen and the orange man is the president, people are going to be like, oh, look at this thing that's happening. And we're going to just pretend like it didn't start under the Democratic administration, right? It's just going to continue. And I think it would behoove everybody to be reminded that it's already happening now, right? So is this going to become, and this is part of understanding propaganda and media and how all of these things work, because what happens in a few months, if this happens again, right? Like, does it become something that is highlighted as, look at how awful things are, right? Or does it get still kind of ignored and thrown under the rug? I'm not sure what'll happen, but I'm going to be interested to watch. As I was reading all these things, I got a notification about a protest happening today in down by Rutgers University in New Brunswick. So that's the third thing, the third article. And so, right. So last year in like late November, this memorandum of understanding was signed between Tel Aviv University and Rutgers University, right? I will be honest, like I had no idea any of this was happening with Rutgers. And now they're actually moving to, with the construction and to try and bring Tel Aviv in. So there's going to be a protest today down in New Brunswick regarding this facility that's being built. What it got me to thinking is like, this was signed November 21st of 2021. So this means that the people at Rutgers got on a plane a month and a half into a genocide.
Wait, you said
2021. This happened November of 2021. That's
no. So this would have been before October 7th, if that's.
Yes. Oh, it's 2024.
Right.
Lord,
right.
So this was years ago. I apologize.
This was in advance of that.
So in advance of that, but they are now moving forward. The building is being built, right?
Well, look how pretty it's about to be.
Right. So this is something that's coming up. This is also in a place where there is heavy gentrification happening, and where housing is disappearing, right? And where people can't get the resources that they need. But here comes this big building at Rutgers, right?
Tell the truth, poor people's housing won't look that good, though. Look how pretty that is.
What's that little circle thing in the middle?
That? I don't know.
No, in the middle of them right there.
Oh, I don't know what that is. Maybe some kind of, I don't know, art structure or something. Who knows? The other side of gentrification. But listen, so all of this is happening right now at Rutgers. So this, of course, sent me down the path of trying to figure out, like, so how many schools have this thing with Tel Aviv? Because I knew there was, these agreements between colleges and universities and they do these exchange programs and whatever have you. But it's a lot. And when you look at the list of schools, because, I did that too. So this one that's highlighted now on the sheet, that's the study abroad program that exists between. I can't. So there's a list of the study abroad programs with Tel Aviv University. So just scroll down and look at how long that list is, and take notes.
Slow down.
Well, I had to get to it.
Emory. Emory.
But think about the encampments.
Brandeis.
And think about where the students got the most pushback. And think about the places where students are currently under attack if they still are trying to push to get away, to try and get some divestment happening.
Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland. They just had a
Colgate
sort of reissued a warning.
I remember Colgate was recruiting in football.
They reissued a warning?
Yeah. Earlier this semester, they reissued a warning to students about not acting up and not breaking rules. And when they had, I think, one protest that I heard about, it was, sort of cordoned off so that the pro-Palestinian and the pro-Israeli groups were nowhere near each other. And there was, and now when I walk around, it's the surveillance on the campus is at a new elite level too. Morgan State saying that they got 3,000 camera views on Morgan's campus. It's got to be. It felt like at least twice that at College Park at Maryland. So I'm not surprised. It's just a lot of surveillance, a lot of, and then some, don't act up, statements to students. Yeah.
I saw Chinimacha saying Tulane students are still fighting charges too. But I remember when I was there, I don't remember what year it was, and had to have been in 2018. I went there for organizing training, and the Uber driver was actually a cop, and he was telling us some stuff about a bunch of things, and they ended up telling us he was a cop. We were surprised. But have you ever heard that city is like fully like surveilled? Like there's cameras everywhere. Like you literally can't walk or be a place without seeing a camera or a camera seeing you.
Can I just point out quickly, and the brother in the blue in the middle there with the orange book in front of him, that's our dear president, the now million plus salary earning Dr. Wilson.
You got A&T at the table?
Yeah, this was from July of 2023, the summer before the Al-Aqsa flood, and just solidifying the relationship there with our university as well. Sorry about that. No, I have not seen the thing you're talking. I haven't witnessed the thing where you said the camera looks back at you.
No, it's like you can't walk anywhere in the city. I think she said yes. You can't walk anywhere in the city without a camera not being on you. Like pretty much the whole city is surveilled. So everything that goes down. Like, wow.
No, and I know for years they've been saying cities like New York and DC, probably LA, they've been like that. Like you haven't like
there's
even before.
And I think people will be surprised to see. I mean, there's that website, that surveillance website that we shared a while back, where you can see where the surveillance is really happening and how widespread it actually is.
But they said if old Delay and Deny hadn't taken his mask off to flirt with a shorty behind the counter at one of those restaurants nearby, they don't know where dude is.
Nothing. I know.
They'd have had nothing. I was like, it figures he's a young man. That's a young man move right there. Somebody smile at you and you pull the mask down and be like, "What's up, baby?" You gotta.
Warriors need to shoot their shot too.
We'll just keep fingers crossed that people don't need money that bad to like.
Hey, but they said I saw with all this surveillance in New York, they said we saw him go into Port Authority, but we didn't see him leave.
Right.
But they said he kept going back and forth, like he understood they were like he might have gotten on a bus, maybe he got on something else, maybe he did something else.
Right.
So it's
good. Well, listen.
It's a decoy. Robinson. It's a decoy.
Look, there's just so much. There's so much behind that story, but I don't think
they said light skin in a hoodie.
I have not enjoyed reading comments as much as I have enjoyed reading comments in the past. Probably.
I had to fix my outfit. I was like, just in case.
What's that newscaster who was? I think it was a joke though. He was describing the suspect, and they pull up a drawing of him. It looked just like the newscaster. That was you, Jay.
No, I saw. Oh, that's what they were talking. Because I saw a story about that story, and people are, because there's a lot of talk about how people are not taking this seriously enough, and I'm like, y'all not taking it seriously.
Yeah, I'm like, people are taking it seriously, just not in the way they want you to, right? Like they don't. They want people to be, more upset about this incident than they are about the millions of people who can't get simple healthcare, right? Like this is the thing that they want you to be really like uptight about. Like, I can't believe this thing happened. How about I can't believe that millions of people can't get healthcare? That's what I can't believe. I can't believe that millions of people can't, get simple stuff done. I can't believe that we are the only country in the world that still has, where you have to declare bankruptcy because of your medical debt. How about we talk like that part?
Remember that white man fake robbed a bank because he needed surgery and had no health care?
Right.
Some years ago, he went in the bank and had a note and was like, "This is not real, but I just need you to know I'm robbing." And then he just gave himself up, and he through being locked up, they had to treat him. It's like, wow.
I mean,
wow.
That's where we going, man. That's what we getting to. That's what we getting to.
All right.
But we also get
so
into
that we don't need
getting you in
healthcare
trouble.
messing with. I was gonna say so that we don't need our healthcare messing with warrior class. Let's go ahead and tomorrow 3:00 for the Gen Z post-election panel. Please, everybody, come back for that. Please stay tuned for warrior class and Sundays with Ear Doctor tomorrow. Anything else you all want to let us know about before we what else?
Bart and Bill finishing up the reading or finishing up the book on Ajamu's book, Organizing for Self-Defense. He'll be actually attending our last one, but yeah.
Oh, that's what's up.
So
that's
cool.
what's up. And David, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to Boston in a little while. I'm speaking at the Community Church of Boston tomorrow. On
Community Church, you preaching?
No,
I didn't know you was a preacher.
No,
it's marketing.
Pastor, let me get a word.
You're gonna be in there marketed like the Messiah.
Hey,
go ahead, spread that good gospel.
Let me hear your homiletics. Let me hear you say, "Huh."
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I'll be talking about policing and the expansion of the police state. That's what I'm gonna go talk about. I gave it to the kids yesterday at Seton Hall University. It was an interesting conversation. So.
Word up.
All right, y'all.
All right, everybody. Please do like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon, blackliberationmedia.org for more. And as always, peace, only if you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. And we'll see you next week, same time, same place for more Saturday with Renee.